Welcome back, everybody. In today's episode, we're going to continue on the Tamiya Stug 3B, and we're going to do filters, and we're going to do some washes, and we'll walk you through the whole process. For the filters, I think we're going to try a few different things. So we have some pre-packaged filters. So we have one here from MIG, one here from the Adam Wilder line of products. And then another one here from the old Sin line of products, which was, I guess, a precursor to MIG. I think this was developed in partnership with MIG way back. And this is actually still good. So this is probably 10, 12 years old. And then we've also got some oil paints here that we're going to use. Different colors of blue, and I've got a red in here to add a bit of a warm tone. So we'll experiment with that a little bit. But we won't get too crazy on things, because to be honest, I was kind of debating whether we do filters or not because of the the nice patchwork effect I was able to get doing the modulation in the last episode. But we'll go ahead. I've kind of done some tests on some hidden panels and whatnot, and I think it's probably worthwhile going through. And then after that, we'll start hitting the washes, and we're going to use probably our trusty MIG dark wash for that. But yeah, let's get on to the filters, and then at the end of the episode, I think the next thing in line for us to do will be to talk about the marking. So I'll talk a little bit about that. We won't get to that in this episode, but I think that'll be on deck for the start of the next one. So let's get to it. Okay, so for the first part of the filters, we'll do two parts. We'll work with the ones that come out of the bottle. So we'll work with the Adam Wilder one, which is the Vibrant Blue, which is Nitroline 10. We'll work with the old Sin Products one, which is blue for Panzer Gray. And I think this is the similar, I think it's the same type of thing you get with the new MIG pre-done filters as well, or AK filters. So it's the same product, just I had this lying around in my stash. And then we'll try one of the newer MIG filters. We'll do brown for desert yellow. Now again, hey, why brown for desert yellow? Your Stug isn't desert yellow, it's Panzer Gray. But it's nice to try and put a brown tone on it to see what it does. And again, these if you use these properly, the color shift is very slight. So we'll start with these, and then we'll go on to some of the oil paints in just a bit. So the key with the pre-done filters, and again, these things it's a matter of convenience. You can go out, you can get different colors pre-mixed for you, and they're mixed to the right consistency and whatnot, or you can make your own from oil paints. But with these guys, you got to make sure that they're mixed very well, because sometimes they can settle. So I've shaken this up off camera, and I've mixed it, and I used my my trusty Badger automatic stirrer there. That really helps out. So I've used that to really work in everything. So what you do is you get your brush in, you get a little bit of color on it, you get most of it off on the lip, you unload it onto the paper, and then let's just well, maybe I did too good a job of that. There you go. And we'll just do panel by panel. So we just did that. So this is untreated. This is just has one layer of filter on it, and you can barely see that there's a bit of a difference. Not sure if the camera is going to be able to pick that up, but there's a bit of a difference there. So let's do this guy up here. So what I like to do when I'm, especially, and the Stug here is a great palette for this because it's so boxy, so it lends itself well to carving things up this way. Let's just do it in that. So you're just trying to create a further differentiation of color and tones of color on almost a panel by panel basis. It'd be interesting to see if you could apply this. If the aircraft guys could apply this to airplanes. I might need to have that conversation with some of my aircraft modeling friends. So or actually before we move off of the blue, let's do another panel. Maybe and again, you can just select this one here. So I'm just going around the vehicle and just picking random extend that down there as well. And it's used to, it's good if you can use a nice flat brush. And again, these ammo synthetic hair brushes are great for that. So let's clean that off. So let's try one or the other, because we want to save some panels for the oils. So let's close that up, and let's shift gears and go to the brown. So this is kind of a mid-tone brown color. So again, make sure you unload the brush. So again, just on a white piece of paper, just until there's hardly anything coming off. Maybe let's go do this guy here. There you go. Let's pick another one. Let's reload the brush. Again, when you're applying it, you're getting most of it off. Let's do this guy here. Let's go up here. Let's do him. Again, a great subject matter to do this, just because of the boxiness of the vehicle and the fact that you can really do different things. Let's maybe pick one of the rear mud guards. Let's do this one here. Again, if you're not sure about something, or you want to try, I mean, we can go to the underside of the vehicle. So if we're not sure about this brown, actually maybe we'll save this for some of the other colors, because according to Robert's reaction with some of the colors I picked, he's not sure. So let's save that for the underside. And I'm just gonna rework this part in a bit. Same thing here. And then let's go to the traditional blue. So this would be more of a, I don't know if there's such thing as a traditional filter color for Panzer Gray, but if there was, this would be it. This is one of the first tones that came out, hit the market. And let's do maybe this other panel here. Let's pick another one. Let's reload the brush. And it's funny, the shelf life on these products varies, I find. Some of them last a long, long time. Some of them don't. Let's do right here. Again, just the nice fact that it's a boxy vehicle really lends itself well to this. Maybe do some panel one on the front here. So again, you got these transmission axis panels here. And maybe we do just the top, that little small panel there. Maybe we do one of the front mud guards in this color. Just to see. Now, this is a pretty safe one to do, because if you don't like it, you can go at it with mud and dust and whatnot. So let's get to the fun stuff. Okay, so that's how you use filters out of the bottle. Now, if you want to mix your own, and they're very easy to do. So what I did here is off camera, I mixed the palette, and I did 6 colors. So we'll go through them. Where did I start? I think I started here. So this color, so this vibrant blue color you see here, is this Panzerabteilung 502 blue-green for German gray, which is number 230. Then for this turquoisey color here, I went with their fantasy range, again, this number 515, turquoise lights. So I wanted to get something a little bright and obnoxious. And then for a warm tone, to add some warmth to the color, because Panzer Gray can be a very cold color, I did the number 25 brick red. And then for this darker blue-gray color here, this is, I'm going to mix these up. Yeah, this is Payne's Gray, number 255. And then this last blue color here is number 235, Intense Blue. And then for kind of a browny tone, I did number 15, Shadow Brown, which is one of my go-to colors for doing watches. And what you do is you mix them. It's kind of like, and Dave and I like to say this all the time, it's kind of like dirty thinner. So it's the same, you can see how, as I bring it up the palette here, how translucent it is. So let's try this first color, which is the blue-green for German gray. And the same type of thing, you unload it, and then let's do, because well, that's a pretty safe one to do, so let's do one of these. Let's do this panel here. And right away I can see a bit of a warmth, like this. This panel is bluer now, a little bit bluer now than it was before, by adding that kind of that light blue filter. Let's pick another one. That's a nice color. Again, you make sure you and maybe I'll get a shot of the paper here where I'm, you're unloading as much of the filter as like you don't want to apply it thick, like you don't want to apply it straight like that. That's too much. You want to, that's a good amount. Maybe let's do this one here. So again, just picking up random panels and applying them. Let's do a couple more. Maybe let's do this guy back here. And you can see right away it's changed. Like this one has a nice blue tone to it. This is the one where we did the brown. It has a bit of a brown tone to it. Maybe hard for the camera to pick up, but with the benefit of the studio light we have here, I can certainly see it with my naked eye. And you can see the difference here up too with the previous applications. Just subtly, very subtly, but that's what you're looking for. Let's do one more panel. What do we want to pick? Let's do this complete side here. Let's do this whole thing here. There we go. Okay, so let's switch to one of the colors that really worried Rob. So we'll go with the turquoise. So we'll just clean the brush off. So this center thing here just says pure thinner. So I use that to clean. So a little paper napkin here is your friend. So let's pick up some of this. Let's make sure mix it up, because the oil paints tend to settle fairly quickly in the odorless. And I always, by the way, again, always use the odorless thinner. This one happens to be from MIG, but you can get it from, AK has it, MIG has it, I think Humbrol has it too. But just make sure you're using the odorless thinner, because that's the least harsh type. And by harsh, I mean harsh on the paint, so it won't, even though this is lacquer paint and it sealed up pretty, it seems to have sealed up very nicely, but you just don't want to take that risk. So with the turquoise, this is one of those ones where you might want to use the underside of the vehicle. So let's attack this panel here. So let's see what that looks like. Oh, that doesn't look too bad, Robert. I think it's okay. let's go back up top side. Let's do this one here. No, we haven't touched that one yet. Again, the changes in color are very subtle. Let's do this toolkit here. Maybe go a little bit heavier on that. Let's do this guy up here. I'll just do the upper portion of it like that. So there's a bit, yeah. There's a. I mean, but the naked eye, I'm starting to see a bit of a difference here. I'll go over some of these old ones here. Sometimes the stuff. Now, if you're asking me which one I prefer, or which method I prefer, I don't know. I think from a product longevity standpoint, I think the oils are probably the better way to go. For the simple reason that, you know, you kind of make your filters on demand, whereas the stuff in the bottles can, you know, they do have a bit of a shelf life. I suppose the oils do too, but I think that the shelf life is longer on those. I'm just kind of cleaning up some of the old panels because I think with one of the old filters I put on, it's starting to haze a little bit. So, again, the nice thing with the stuff is that you can take, you know, within a reasonable amount of time, you can pull it off. So let's do the warm red tone now. So this is the brick red. And you can see how translucent it is. So I'm going to do this one right here. Let's see what that gives us. Like that. Sorry, Robert, I'm moving around on you. Okay. So this we did with the turquoise, this we did with the red. So you can see there's a bit of a tonal difference. Maybe let's do this one too with the red, this other mudguard here. Now with the marking scheme I picked, there's going to be white borders on this that we're going to do with hairspray. So that'll be the topic of a future episode. And with the red tone, because it's so different from the rest of the palette, I think it's good just to pick a few panels. I might do this one here. And again, if you're doing it for that it's too muted, simply, you know, let it dry for, you know, a good 30 minutes, and then you can apply another coat on top. Okay, so let's move to the Payne's Gray. So this is one of the darker tones we have. So this is like a dark blue gray, as you can see here. Well, I would say probably more of a dark blue with a little bit of gray in it. You can see it's quite dark. So let's do... What would be a good panel to do? Let's do one of these hatches here in the front. So we did this one. We didn't do this one, so let's do this one in the Payne's Gray. Let's pick up some more color. What else would I want to do? Maybe this. this part of the fender up to that. Again, the reason for doing that is just to kind of break it up, to break up the monotony of the colors. Let's do one of these hatches. So I don't think we've done. I don't think we've done this hatch once. Let's do this one here. Like so. And then let's switch gears, clean the brush, and let's go with the last color, which is the intense blue. So this is kind of similar to the very first color we did, but maybe do this back here, maybe do this. Let's give this some primetime real estate up here. Do one of these upper panels. Thinking of this color palette is this, I mean, I have a Tamiya 1/32 scale birdcage Corsair at home, and that would be an ideal subject to do this type of thing on, where you're kind of, let's kind of blend that a bit over here. Make sure. Sometimes you might get some tide marks from wherever. So just take a slightly damp brush, and damp with odorless thinner, and just kind of blend that in. Now this stuff should dry pretty good, but just in case. And last but not least, let's do the shadow brown filter. Now this is similar, I guess, in tone to the brown for desert yellow that we did out of the bottle. So maybe just do... Okay, so we're just continuing to apply the last filter, which is the shadow brown. We'll give this another coat and just another hit. Very subtle. I might go back and reapply some of the brown, or sorry, some of the blue-green for Panzer Gray. Another. And maybe do another. Do the side panel here. Go and do the next one in the turquoise. So do this one in turquoise. And then let's do that little vision port there, that armored vision port. Let's do that in red. Let's give that a warmer tone. Okay. I might just go pick out different parts of the vehicle to do. Maybe the front here, or maybe let's do that. Let's darken that a bit. Let's do that in Payne's Gray. So do this. And then, so I'm just bouncing around the palette here, as you can tell. Let's pick up some red. Let's do the armored
visor here in red. And let's pick out or actually, sorry, I'm going to change that. Let's do this one in intense blue. So we'll do the bottom part of that armored visor, that bullet guard, I guess, shell guard. Let's do that in intense blue. Just to give just slight different tonal variations to things. And maybe let's go back to the blue-gray for Panzer Gray here, and let's do this front. This whole front panel here. Now here's, again, this is a safe spot of the vehicle to do, because when we get to the weathering stage and there's going to be a lot of mud splash and dust and dirt and grime and stains and whatnot. So if you don't like something, you can always, or you know you're going to cover it up in mud, and you can always do that. Let's take too much color on that. There we go. And let's do the other one in red. I think we're done. So I might take a quick hair dryer to this off camera just to accelerate the drying time, just to see how everything looks. We'll take one last peek on it, and if we're happy with it, we'll move on to the washes. If we're not, we'll throw a few more coats of filter on. Okay, so after taking a hair dryer and cleaning up some things, I think we're at a point now where we're pretty happy. One thing I did notice though is that this one would craze up a bit, would kind of get a little bit kind of patchy, so I ended up pulling it off with some thinner, so I'll probably bin that one. But these other two guys were fine, and anything I did with the oils was fine. So here's kind of the finished product, and you can see there's just the slightest variation to the different panels, which I think will carry through for the weathering process. Again, most of the mud and the dirt and the dust are going to be on the bottom parts of the vehicle. You know, everything from the fenders on down. I didn't do anything on the wheels. I didn't bother putting any filters on the wheels because they're going to be covered with mud pretty good. And I didn't do much I didn't do anything on the running gear, again, for the same reason. That's all going to be covered with mud. So I just really stayed to the upper surfaces. And to be fair, not every single panel got a filter. There's a few panels here and there that, like, none of this back here, the panels themselves got filters, but the everything that wasn't a panel didn't get a filter. So, and we didn't do a lot of the fenders here at all. So I think we're pretty happy where we are. So now I think we can probably move on to the wash phase, and this is one of my favorite phases of doing a model, because this is where things really start to pop. So we'll start getting in, and there's a lot of detail here in terms of the bolt detail and the panel lines and the hinges and the hatches and whatnot. So this will be a fun part to do. So we're just going to take a few minutes off camera to clean up, and we're going to go back to some trusty oil paints and our dark wash here for doing the washes. So a couple of minutes prep time off camera for that, and we'll get right back into it. Thanks. Okay, so we're on to one of my favorite parts of the whole painting and weathering process is the application of washes, and I've made a couple from oil paints. So this first one here this lighter color here you see here. This is the shadow brown. So this is the again 502 Tonal 015 shadow brown, and then for a slightly darker brown color, I went with the engine grease, which is the 160. So you mix, again, these are going to be thicker than your filters, so you can see as I pull this up the side of the palette here, it's a much thicker consistency than what we were seeing with the filters. Now, to be fair, there's not, the engine grease is just slightly darker than the shadow brown. So what we'll do is then we'll just start going around the vehicle and start picking out hatches. And so just start to touch. And again, capillary action is your friend here. It's going to work. Going to work for you. Just start touching and so let nature do the rest. Again, you got to keep mixing these because the oil paint will settle pretty quickly. So you can see right away the added definition that you get. You know what, I might thicken up this engine grease just a bit. That's the nice thing about these things. If you make it yourself, you can really play with the consistency up and down. Whereas if you're using stuff out of the bottle, it's convenient. There's no question about that. But at least this, you make what you need. Just a little bit more paint. Okay, let's go back. There we go, it's a little bit thicker. You just see how when you start applying how the hatch or the latches here come to life. Now, I won't be too worried. As you can see, this kind of things are kind of bleeding over. I won't be too worried about that. So let's go and attack. And again, the Stug is a great vehicle for this because of all of the different panels and access hatches and whatnot. Really takes to this quite well. And the wash really just serves to further define and give some depth to the details on a vehicle. And again, that's why it's one of my favorite parts, is because it's the really kind of the very first time in the entire painting and finishing process that, in my mind anyways, that the vehicle starts to come to life. Where it starts to really take on some character and kind of get a sense of where things are going. There's a bit of a weld line here, so let's give that some attention as well. We'll start getting into the grills. So even though I have two colors on my palette, I seem to be gravitating to the darker one, which is the engine grease. It's a nice dark brown. And all I'm doing is I'm just touching areas of detail and kind of letting the capillary action of the wash do its thing. You can see now how that grill just pops now. I have to really give a shout out to Tamiya on that grill. This is the grill that came with the kit, and they really managed to replicate the nice woven texture of the mesh on the grill very nicely. Certainly up there with anything Abe or Edward would do, for example. And this is probably what, almost a 10-year-old kit now. So well done to me. I wish you would do that on all your kits. So again, just going over and just adding some further. So I think the key here is to work in small areas at a time. So what I'm going to do is I'll probably take this off camera, hit it with the hair dryer, and then we'll start to maybe blend it, because as you can see here, we are going to get some tide marks. So we need to deal with those. So that's why, work one panel at a time. Let it dry, and then go back and fix it before you move, and get happy with that panel before you move on to something else. So we'll just take a few minutes, clean that up. Okay, so we've applied the hair dryer. Now the challenge we have though is that there's still in the recesses here in the panel lines of the hatch covers, there's still some wash in there. So we'll kind of let that, we have to let that dry on its own. There's a couple of things you can try and do here to kind of blend things. You can use a makeup sponge. So these are ones that I stole from my wife, Carolyn. So Carolyn, if you're watching at home, I'm sorry, but the hobby calls. So you can try and simply, and this is kind of like what the aircraft guys do, right? So when they apply their panel line washes, they'll kind of clean things up in the direction of wind flow. So here you're kind of doing it in the direction of rainfall. And you can see I'm starting to pick up. And then maybe we'll try the same thing here, if that works. Yeah, it's starting to clean up. Now again, I'm doing this right on the paint. I didn't seal this with anything. I didn't matte coat it. I didn't gloss coat it. I didn't do anything to it. This is just straight on the paint that we did in the last episode. So you can see there's still some tide marks, but we have a solution for that. So now we've kind of gotten, we've cleaned things up a bit, but you can still see there's tide marks on there. So the thing to do with tide marks is you get a brush with some clean thinner, get most of it off, and then you start to blend. So all I'm doing here is I'm just blending the wash back towards the panels. Like so. And you can see that on this one, so you see there's a bit of a tide mark right in there. So I'm just going to blend that out just by, again, you're kind of going in the direction of rainfall. So you're almost doing a little bit of streaking here, which we'll get, again, that'll be kind of the topic of another episode, probably right after we get the decals on. And with a bit of a stippling motion, you're kind of blending everything in. So again, it can't stress enough, that's why you kind of do one section at a time. Because if I spent the time and did the whole vehicle and then came back and did this, that might be, you know, the longer it sits, the harder it's going to be for it to come off. So that's still got some wet thinner on, so let's move on. Let's clean this part up. So again, you're just kind of working it's almost as if you're working with oil paint. So I'm just cleaning up right to the edge of that weld line there. Now this one looks pretty good, and this doesn't need a whole lot of cleanup. But you see, when I'm blending it down, I'm just like, it's like I'm doing kind of like doing some streaks. Now this one, there's a little bit of bleed that we didn't get addressed with the sponge, so. And it looks pretty good. Let's get some clean the brush and reload some clean thinner on it. Okay, so that bottom half looks, I think, pretty good so far. We'll let it give it a chance to dry. That's looking good. Now let's attack this last hatch here. So the same thing, you're just kind of cleaning things up. Now this will take this technique that I use takes a little bit longer, I think, than just kind of applying the washes but I just think it adds to the overall effect. It's another layer that you're adding to your build. So I just, and you're kind of, you know, what I'm kind of, you know, doing scouting ahead for the next phase, which is the wash or the streaking, and I'm kind of getting a handle of, you know, the surfaces of the vehicle and which way the rain would flow and therefore the streaks would go. So even though this is pretty much a horizontal surface, there is a slight slant to it downwards. So, you know, the streaks are, so when I'm blending this, you're kind of blending it down like that. That's all you need to do. Very easy. And this weld line here is going to act like a bit of a trap for dirt that's kind of washed down. So at a later stage, I may enhance that with oils. But yeah, you can get a sense that that's starting to look pretty good. And then there's some tide marks up here. Just going to blend these in. Oh, there's some up here. So you're just kind of blending it. Just blending it in. So to be fair, this part, so if I go back to the last episode, and it took us about an hour, maybe an hour and change to apply the, from a black primer up to, the first gray coat and the first highlight and the second highlight, and that took about an hour to do. This will take me longer. This will take me, this will be a couple of 3 hours on the vehicle. But the reason for that is that I am taking my time on this deliberately. And I do find this relaxing because, well, I guess especially relaxing, call it. Because I just find that this is where you get the first indications of how the final product is going to look. Some tire marks up here. Let's get those in. Chipping. Am I going to do a lot of chipping on this? Not a lot. I used to be a big fan of the chipping. I would chip everything that moved, but I just find it can be overdone. So I'll do it. So, I'll do it on the hatches and where there would be some wear and tear from the from crew activity. There we go. So I think it looks pretty good. So again, look at the different, and again, there's still streaking and oil paint and maybe the application of some pigments and whatnot. So we're still a long way from the finish line. But if you look at, you compare this part of the vehicle where we've just only applied filters to this here where we've applied our first wash, you can see how much deeper, how much more depth there is to this, how much the more life there is to it, how much more character there is to it. Again, that's why doing washes is one of my favorite things to do. So we'll let that dry, and then let's maybe attack some of the front parts of the vehicle while we're waiting here. So I'm going to go back to my trusty engine grease mix. So now, I mean, this is if there was ever anything that called out for a wash, it's these. Look at these, the size of these hatches and hinges. I mean, come on. This was made for washes, baby. I remember Mike Rinaldi was here at the shop at Hornet Hobbies, and this was about maybe a couple years back, a year and a half ago maybe, and he just uses oil paints, and I was questioning that. I'm like, how can you just use oil paints? But now, as I get more into it, I'm starting to figure that out, that you can do anything from oil paints. Now, that doesn't have the same convenience as having a ready-to-go wash, or a ready-to-go filter, or a ready-to-go earth effect. Pardon me. But yeah, you could do it, and I guess for a guy like Mike who travels the world and does all these seminars and whatnot, it makes sense that you bring your oil paints with you and a few brushes and some thinner, and that's all you need to do to to give your demonstrations and whatnot. But it's doable. But again, it's all those other products, and I have bins at home full of them, plastic containers full of them, because they're convenient. And I'll probably continue to buy, even though I like to use the oil paints from time to time. I'm probably still going to buy that stuff because of the convenience of it. But again, you can see, just from this side, it has nothing to this side. You can just see how things start to pop. Let's go over here and start talking. Again, these are Beautiful hatches. Beautiful, thick, bulky hinges. Just crying out for some attention from a wash. So I think we're getting near the end of our episode for today. And what I'm going to do is, off camera, on my free time, I'm just going to continue to do the same process all over the top of the vehicle. I'm going to continue to do the road wheels. So I am going to do the washes on the road wheels, and here's an example of one that has a wash and one that doesn't. So we'll continue doing those. Again, they're going to get covered up by the dust and dirt and whatnot. So, if you didn't want to do wash on this, if you're looking to save time, that's probably a good area to do that. But I'll carry on with that, and we'll carry on doing some washes here and on the bottom side of the vehicle, just to tie everything together, even though there's going to be a fair bit of mud and whatnot on these things. Yeah, so now that this has had a chance to dry, I think that's probably where we want that one to be. So I think this is ready for the next stage. So we'll finish up the front of the vehicle off camera. We'll finish up the entire vehicle off camera, and then at the start of the next episode, we'll do which will be a decaling episode, or a decaling episode. Decals. What I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about how I apply the decals and what I do and how I prep the surface, and we'll talk about the markings that we're going to be using here, which will be a combination of the kit supplied decals and ones from this Star decal set that I picked up from the barrel store. So this is the vehicle we're going to be doing here. Although I am going to change this for the red marking that comes with the. So I am going to steal some markings that came with the Tamiya kit, and I'm a little bit concerned about that because these typically are thicker and do have trouble setting down. So it'll be interesting to see how we overcome that, and I'll bring up some of the setting solutions and some of the tips and tricks that I use to get past that. So the next episode will be the vehicle will all be nice and washed and cleaned up. And I'll do some prep on some surfaces and not on others, and I'll kind of walk you through that whole process. That was something that some of our viewers had asked for, so we'll kind of focus on that, and that'll probably be about a good 45-minute episode. So thanks again for sitting with me here on this and join me on this journey here for this particular vehicle. And I wanted to take this opportunity to wish everybody a happy New Year, a happy 2019, and I hope that it's always fun to look back on the year that was and the year going forward, and certainly for me personally, 2018 was a great year, both personally, professionally, and from a hobby standpoint. So very thankful for that. Hopefully we can carry some of that momentum into 2019. So I hope it's the same for you guys, and all the best to you, your families, and your loved ones. And we'll see you next time around. Take care.